let's be honest, no one is honestly trained on how to be an effective healthcare administrator or executive director in healthcare. It just doesn't happen. You might have a 6-month training period where you shadow somebody or you jump around to a few different communities or facilities. But at the end of the day, there is really no training. And this is how it is with most jobs. And so if you're kicking yourself, telling yourself, oh, I never got trained, well, that's just how life is most of the time. They just throw you into the fire and expect you to figure it out. Take these principles and apply them, because when I got trained, I really wish that there would have been more emphasis on the different principles, the processes. You know, you're going to learn the regulations. You're going to learn all of the rules and the way that they want you to stay in compliance. Like, those are just all table stakes. But if you truly want to be an effective healthcare administrator or executive director or operator or just manager in general, these 6 principles are going to help you run an effective organization. With that being said, my name is Logan Brandt. I am an executive director. My name is Logan Brandt. I am the executive director of an assisted living community here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I've just barely been doing this for, technically, I've been the executive director there for about a year, just over a year. And my training was about 6 months before that. And like I said, training. I really just showed up, shadowed, watched what was going on, and tried to figure it out for myself. Which, honestly, I wouldn't have asked for it any other way, because usually the best way to learn is by not knowing what's going on and truthfully just having to figure it out. By no means am I pretending to have all the answers. I'm just sharing with you some things that have worked for me and things that I took from my past career and have been able to implement to really get me off to a successful start as a young executive director in senior living. Point number 1, you got to take extreme ownership and accountability for your community. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't mean that every single little mistake that happens gets you super pissed off and upset, because we all know people that the second something bad happens, it's just like the sky is falling and there's just fires everywhere. What I am saying, though, is that if there's a med error, if there's a family complaint, if the food is cold, you need to truthfully take ownership on that and make sure that it doesn't happen again, and fix the problem, follow up on it, look into it. You need to take that personally. It's like the Michael Jordan meme. And I took that personally. Every single thing needs to, deep down bother you, because these are your residents. These are your employees. You are responsible for them to essentially really have a good life. You have so much power and responsibility. And so maybe you don't own the business, but you need to have that business owner mentality that it all falls on you, and that you have the ability to really have an impact on people's lives. Because it can get so easy to just go through the day-to-day motions. Oh yeah, the food's cold. Who cares? It's cold everywhere. Or, oh yeah, med errors happen. That's normal in healthcare. Like, you need to be different. You need to have a higher standard than maybe the facilities around you or of other coworkers, because so many people get comfortable in the day-to-day, and it's really easy to just get comfortable that, okay, yeah, we're making money, we're profitable, people want to move here. But you know what? You need to have that competitive edge that you're just going to do everything in your power to be the best you can. Don't let it stress you out, but take ownership, take accountability, write down those small complaints, those small things, and truthfully try to figure them out, try to fix them. You're not going to be perfect, and don't try to be perfect, but fix the little things, fix the big things, fix the complaints. Point number 2, you need to spend time working on the business, not just in the business. Healthcare can turn you into a firefighter, especially if you're at a smaller community where your hands get a little bit more dirty. You can be running around. You can be pouring coffee. You can be fixing TVs. You can be doing it all. But it's important that you don't just show up to work every day and just run around like a chicken with its head chopped off. Show up, make sure you're working on the business, not just in the business. Now, what does that mean? It's super cliche to say this. It's a super famous thing that you hear business owners talk about. And it comes back to having that business owner mentality. But what it means to work on the business is you need to be able to spend 1, 2 hours, 3 hours, maybe not every single week, but regularly, to look at what are we projecting as far as our finances look at for the next 1, 2, 3, 6, 12 months. What do things look like? In a assisted living community like mine, we do support Medicaid. And so when we take on Medicaid patients or Medicaid residents, or a private pay resident turns into a Medicaid resident, that drastically affects our finances. And so having that projection is me working on the business and understanding where we're going to be. The other thing that it looks like is zooming out and looking at my staffing, my culture. Okay, do I like how culture is right now? Do I feel like my employees are happy? And I'm also talking to them about it, not just in their annual interview, but just simply, hey, how are things going? How are things going out there? How are you feeling? Are you feeling supported? What do we need to be doing? And I'm also looking at, okay, so-and-so seems to be calling out late. I don't really trust that person. I need to probably find a replacement for that person eventually. I'm just always trying to think 2 or 3 steps ahead, because that's when crisis happens, is when you don't plan ahead and you don't realize, oh, this person's got vacations coming up. We've got holidays coming up, and we're going in the flu season, so staff's probably going to get sick. Or if you're already running kind of short staffed, you're probably running them too hot and they're going to burn out. I run marathons, I do triathlons. Your body just physically can't take a very hard toll day after day after day. And some of these caregivers, some of these CNAs, they are going crazy every day. They're sweating and their body's not going to hold up. You've got to account for those things. And so make sure you're zooming out, looking at all the potential problems that could come, and see if you can get in front of them. And that's just going to make you so much more effective, and it's going to make your employees and your residents' lives so much better. This is where you're working on building systems and processes to where you don't feel like you're just always having to recreate the wheel every single week. For example, in housekeeping, I'm trying to do this right now. I'm not perfect at it, but we're trying to figure it out to where, hey, we've got our weekly cadence, we've got our monthly cadence, we've got our quarterly cadence, we've got our semi-annual and annual cleaning schedules, to where I don't have to worry about, oh, have we shampooed the carpets lately? Have we done this? It's just all in a system and in a process. And it's going to eliminate so much, brain fatigue of me trying to remember of what we need to do. Point number 3, I just touched on this a little bit, but be actively involved in hiring and in recruiting. And this is where you've got to take it personal. If you are short-staffed, you need to take that personally, because in my mind, you're failing your residents, you're failing your employees. When you have an employee working a double, a triple, or they've worked 11 days without a day off, you are just asking for problems and issues. Not just with the employees, but they're going to get tired. They're going to make mistakes. They're not going to be as nice. They're not going to be as kind. It's just this trickle-down effect. Nothing is worse than being short-staffed and essentially just telling your team to figure it out. I don't have a healthcare background. I am not a fan. It's really hard for me to go work the floor. Now, some people would say, the administrator can't be afraid to get his hands dirty. That is true. I have done my best to help. I've gotten my med certificate, and I've done things to where, hey, I can help out in a pinch. That's not what I'm telling you that you shouldn't do. But I've always said, if I am working the floor, then I have failed my staff and I have failed my residents because I have not provided adequate staffing for them. And that's me taking ownership. Guess what? I have to work the floor maybe once or twice a year. It happens. You're going to be short-staffed. You're going to run into crazy things that happen. But you need to actively be working on the recruiting side. And so when I say recruit, this isn't just getting in on Indeed and messaging some people and sitting in on some interviews. You need to recruit. Recruit means you need to sell those people on why they should work for you and not your competitor, or not go work a different job. Healthcare is a challenging field. People don't necessarily always want to go work as a CNA. It's tough. It's hard work. But they will work for a leader that they feel like believes in them and supports them. And so in the interview process, in the recruiting process, can you essentially just show them those things that they can say, hey, I trust this person. I know they're not going to ask me to work 12 days in a row, and I'm going to be able to have a work-life balance. All of the things that they want that other jobs can usually provide, because you hear the horror stories all the time. Hey, I had to work 12 days in a row. I never see my kids. I'm never able to take the days off that I want. And so be actively involved in bringing in good talent, good culture, because at the end of the day too, if you're short-staffed, you're going to be desperate on who you hire. So you're going to have to bring in people that maybe aren't the best culture fits. And with that, if you are the one that at the end of the day is in charge of the hiring and the recruiting, you're going to bring in the people that you want, the people that you want your culture to build around. And I just think that's so key and so crucial, because too many administrators, they wonder why they're short-staffed. They wonder, why they can't bring in good talent. And part of it is because they're not actively involved. The other piece to being actively involved in recruiting and hiring, if you work in a community or a facility, I want you to step back and I want you to look at all your employees and think about, how did they get here? Did they come through Indeed? Were they maybe a referral from somebody? Think about the different ways that you found your best employees. And I can guarantee that probably more than 50% of them didn't come from Indeed. The best ones typically are word of mouth or referrals. And so that's the other piece to nurturing these relationships with your staff and with your employees, is you just always need to be maybe keeping them aware of, hey, we're going to be looking to hire in the next couple months. Are there any good people that you think we should be reaching out to, or that you think might be looking for a new opportunity somewhere? Turnover is normal in healthcare, but guess what? It doesn't have to be normal for you, but it can be normal to where that turnover of these other places feeds their top talent to you. And so nothing is better than just truly building a great team of CNAs, caregivers, dietary staff that you just slowly begin to acquire, not because you're desperate and you're in a hiring spree, but truthfully bringing on people when you realize, hey, this person is solid. This person has all the intangibles. Let's hire them. Let's make it work. And that's the other piece too. If you're actively involved, some people won't hire because, we're staffed. Well, guess what? If you're looking at the big picture, that person's terrible. That person doesn't do a good job. They're always late. You're likely going to have to fire them soon. And so bring in the A players before you let your organization get taken over by a bunch of C players. Point number 4, and this one's probably taught to you, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, but occupancy, that is your job. Keeping your building full should be one of your main responsibilities. It's part of the job. And when I say it's part of the job, you need to be introducing yourself to visitors, to guests. Your job is to be active and in the community, talking to people, being helpful, being a resource. At the end of the day, it's pretty simple, especially in assisted living. You need to be making partnerships with skilled nursing facilities as they discharge people that can't go home. They need a place to live, or they need somewhere where they can live that has adequate care to take care of them. And then as people come and visit, you need to be going, shaking hands, and truly putting your best foot forward and bringing energy to those families. They're going through a tough time. And a lot of times as you walk into communities and facilities, you just have this negative feeling and energy in them. And so you need to bring the energy. You need to go shake hands and just be, the smile, put that smile on your face and sell your community. Occupancy is sales. Can you sell your community? Go sell your community. And you can sell your community when you're able to look them in the eye and say, hey, I take accountability for everything going on here. We're not going to be perfect, but you're dang right that we're going to try our best. And families can appreciate that. So, occupancy. At the end of the day, you are the financial operator of the building. You got to make money. And the best way to make more money is to increase your top line, which is revenue. And that's why it's point number 4. Point number 5, prioritize the big things. don't get lost in the weeds of the little things. And this is what I mean by that. For example, I had a boss, we were in a meeting and we were going through the balance sheet. We're just looking at the expenses and we were focused on why the kitchen or the dietary team spent an extra $500 that month on supplies. Now, first off, $500 in a, business that does $300,000 a month in revenue is minuscule. But second, we had 2 vacant apartments at the time. And those vacant apartments, on average, would rent for probably right around between $6,000 to $7,000. So at the low, we were here talking about $500 a month when we had this opportunity over here that could generate an extra $12,000 a month. And so don't get caught up in the little things. Now that those 2 apartments are full and we're collecting revenue on them, now we're going to go to the next, issue that we feel like is going to move the needle the most. That $500, eventually we might get to it. But at the end of the day, don't get sidetracked on what's really most important. Focus on the biggest things that are going to move the needle the most. And I think this is the part that nobody ever taught me, but it's what has helped our community the most, is we are just taking this one thing at a time of, let's get this part done. It's going to move the needle. We're going to get this one done next. And we're just doing it one thing at a time, but they're the biggest things, because change is hard for everybody. And so if you start coming in with all these changes to all these little things, you're going to burn them out real quick. And guess what? It's going to take the same amount of time and effort usually to change the big things as it would the small things. You only have so much time in the day, so make sure you're using your time effectively and focusing on the things that are going to move the needle the most. Point number 6, let your managers and team do what they're best at. And so what I mean by this is know their strengths, know their weaknesses, and you yourself, you need to know your strengths, you need to know your weaknesses. You are a team, and a lot of times in senior living, you're all wearing multiple hats and doing a lot of different things. But if you can allow your team to truly focus on what they're best at, for example, my nurse, nobody else is getting in her lane and pretending to be the nurse. So many people, caregivers, front desk people, they think because they've been in healthcare for a little bit that they can have a say or an opinion on the care plans, the service plans, or how things should be done. And it's just not the case. Your nurse is in charge of nursing. Your dietary manager is in charge of the dietary team. They are in charge of the food. And you as the executive director are there to facilitate that, making sure people are staying in their lane and then empowering them to do what they do best and to, focus all their time and talents and abilities on what's going to move the needle the most for them. And so you really have to learn how to delegate, and you need to trust them, but also verify. It doesn't mean you just let them go run off and do their own thing, and then you come back and you're out of compliance and all these things. You still need to be checking in and making sure you're doing everything the right way, but truthfully, let them cook. Let them do their thing. Let them, do what they do best. And then you need to identify what you do best. And for me, it's part of the relationships. It's those things. And for me, it's the relationships. It's dealing with families. And so, I found that a lot of people, they don't want to have those hard conversations with families sometimes. And so that's really where I become the buffer of, if there's issues, if there's complaints, you don't need to go talk to the nurse. You don't need to go do this. Like, bring it to me directly. I want to really allow my managers to stay in their lane and not have to worry about the little things. And as the healthcare administrator, you really need to be good at everything, unfortunately. And so whatever they're not good at, you pick up the slack there, and then, don't try to do everything. Let them do what they're best at. But anyways, that's a wrap. Those are just a few things that I wish would have maybe been taught to me, or that I think would be helpful for anyone that has either been in the industry for a long time and is just trying to figure out how they can be more effective and efficient, or for somebody that's just getting into this and feeling like, dang, I feel like I'm like getting trained on certain things, but there's other aspects of leadership and management that I'm just kind of missing. So if you liked it, like, subscribe. See you guys on the next video.